Hi, we're at a sort of a typical American home that are combinations of both sun and shade. And one of the challenges that most homeowners have is trying to maintain turf in a shaded situation. So we're going to spend the next couple minutes and just explain how it is possible to have good turf in shaded situations. Growing a turf involves several different things that have to be present for a healthy turf to survive. And certainly one of the big things, important things, is light. And that's always one of the challenges in a shady situation because you have less sunlight. There are some things that a homeowner can do to help counteract the effect or mitigate the effect of low light. One of the things obviously would be to limb the trees up a little bit higher so you get some sunlight coming through the trees or underneath the trees later in the day. That's always helpful. But probably one of the most important things is understanding what turf needs to be healthy and to try and compensate and do things to the soil to help the soil be able to support turf, whether in the sun or the shade. Certainly in shaded situations, you want to start out with grass varieties which are shade tolerant. Not every grass will grow very well in sun. Some will grow better. So you want to make sure you select a turf variety which has been demonstrated to grow well in your particular part of the country in shade situations. Where we are here today, fescue types of lawns will tend to grow better in the sun than will bluegrass lawns. So you want to have a mixture of turf grasses that have more fescue in so that you have a better chance of them being successful in a shaded situation. One of the other things that typically happens as people are trying to maintain turf in a shaded situation is the fact that the turf is in competition with the tree for nutrients and soil moisture. So one of the things that's important to do, especially if you have a spell of hot, dry weather, is to make sure that you add additional water to the turf area, especially as it is under the trees, because the tree is going to suck up a lot of water as well. And obviously moisture is a critical part of any plant health system, and certainly turf is one of those. But where one of the fallacies and where people have difficulty growing turf in a shaded situation is again, because they understand the competition part of it and they compensate with more water, a lot of times people will compensate with more food because they think the tree is taking some of the turf food. So they actually put more fertilizer in the turf, on the turf in a shaded situation. And that's actually the exact opposite from what you should really do. Yes, the tree is competing for some of the nutrients, although tree roots are generally much deeper than the turf roots. So it's not really taking nutrients that the turf might otherwise get. And in fact, what typically happens when you over-fertilize a turf in a shaded situation is you're actually causing the turf to consume up stored root carbohydrates from earlier in the season and actually put the turf into a stress condition. In a shaded situation, the turf is not growing as fast or as aggressively as it is when it has full sun. It needs the sun to actually manufacture food through the process of photosynthesis. So if you have less sunlight that's hitting a turf area, you'll have less growth naturally. And because of that, it does not need as much fertilizer. You actually can put about half the amount of fertilizer on the turf in a shaded situation than you are applying in a sunny situation, and you'll get much better results than if you put the same amount or even more fertilizer on. The other thing that is helpful in a turf situation in shade, in addition to the water, cutting back on the fertilizer, is to make sure that a good soil test is taken and you follow the soil test recommendations to make sure that the pH is proper for the turf that you're growing there, that the soil is very porous, that it can drain, that it can exchange air and moisture with the soil down deeper, and make sure that the calcium levels are correct. So those are the three things you need to do if you're trying to get turf to grow in a shaded situation. Raise the limbs, try and get as much sunlight in as you can. Make sure that you put less fertilizer on in the turf that's in the shaded situation, and try and make sure the soil is conditioned as best as possible to help support the growth of the turf or any plants. There are some trees which, no matter what you do, just will not grow turf. Your maples, as a family of trees, the maples are extremely difficult to grow turf under almost no matter what you do. Certainly sugar maples and silver maples are some of the worst, just because they have a very surface-oriented root system, and it's almost impossible to grow turf in those situations. If that's what you're faced with, you might want to just give up on the turf and either mulch the areas underneath those trees, or consider some type of a ground cover such as pachysandra or vinca, periwinkle, or some other plants that's out there which are compatible with the trees and would do better in that situation. Thank you so much.